Welcome back, everybody, to me talking Wheel of Time stuff, and we're still in Eye of the World. I have calmed down since yesterday, and today is going to be less agitated, is what I'm trying to say here. I'm still not going to praise this to high heaven, but there's some positives in today's part, which is all about chapters 32, I think? To 42, unless I am completely mistaken. 32 until 42 is what I'm trying to say, which is Dark Awaits, something like that, until, Dream Remembrance? Something like that. Remembrance of Dreams, of course, and that's what we're talking about today. So we're starting off after the disaster in Four Kings in Shadow, and we'll end up at the end of, somewhere in Camelin. That's what I'm trying to say here. So yeah, that's what we're going to do. And yeah, if you enjoy all of this, please like, subscribe, do all those things. But first of all, thank you all for watching the last couple of videos, on bearing with me on this journey. If you are actually fans of the Wheel of Time, please go ahead and help me like this or understand this. Have no fear in the comments, or just yell at me. I'm fine with all of that. But first of all, thank you all for staying with me so far. I know I'm not making it easy for any of you. But now, let's get this started, shall we? Cheers. Yeah, I'm an idiot. Obviously, chapter 33, because we stopped at 32 yesterday. Me and numbers, not good, which is why I studied maths, because there you don't need to deal with numbers. You get letters instead, which is pretty cool. From this aside, let's look at what we have to look at today, and that is the end of the Nynaeve Moraine Lan solo adventure, like side quest, and the end of the Perrin Egwene side quest, and the end of the Nat and Rand side quest, ending all with a big reunion and the sort of point where we're preparing for the final battle in some sort or another. That's sort of what we are going to do today, and yeah. Let's start all of these things with what I looked at. And the first thing that I want to talk about is inconsistency. Because maybe I'm dumb. I mean, probably I'm dumb, but it looks to me that there is some ridiculous inconsistency between the chapters, The Dark Awaits or whatever, chapter 33, and what was going on in chapter, this must be 31, Play for Your Supper. There's an inconsistency, because in that chapter 31, Play for Your Supper, our good buddies Rand and Matt already have their scarves. And we get already told the story for how they have those scarves, but that is at a situation before they start playing. And then, in chapter 33, we once again have the same situation, and they get given those scarves by a farmer who says the same thing. Now, my first explanation is this is like 1990, NPCs didn't have that many dialogue lines in games at the time, so maybe it's like every farmer that you meet, it's kind of like the dark elves in Morrowind that always call you Outlander and want to kick you from their island. Here we have every farmer on a cart with a family will tell you that he has scarves from his son's scarves in his back pocket for whatever reason. We'll not question that. I just found it weird because while Jordan does something of a bit of a flashback kind of way in that chapter about the dark waiting, in which is chapter 33, he does some of that there. As far as I've read it, the scarf giving is not part of that, because the scarf giving in chapter 33 happens after the disaster in Four Kings. However, the scarf giving in Play for Your Supper happens before they even pick up the whole gleeman, or at least traveling musician entertainer kind of spiel. So why did no one notice that? At least, people that were in charge of getting this published. That doesn't make any sense. Anyway, so that's just like something that I found. Maybe you can explain it to me. Maybe I'm just reading it wrong, but as it stands right now, I would say they get like 2 pairs of scarves because Robert Jordan forgot that he had given them the scarves already. Which, I get it. I don't like to read whatever I've written. I hate doing that, so maybe he was the same kind of person. Well, that's that. Now, the interesting thing there is that we obviously have 2 more encounters with dark friends. And we have a heavy hint that our good buddy Rand is able to touch the one source. Because he falls sick a couple of days after the first dark friend, Master Gold, was hit by lightning and stuff like that. So we have the second instance of something happening after Rand really wishing for it. And him then getting like fever results. So there's that. And I'll just leave that there because for now we don't exactly know where all of this will be going in the future. I mean, I know most of you probably know because I guess most of you have read more of it than I have. And I have at least read the end of this book before, so I kind of know where it's going. But, no spoilers, so we'll see how all of that goes. In le futur. La future? I have no idea. My French is broken. Point is, he does something magical there, and we know that dudes using magic dudes are illegal in Wheel of Time. So Rand is going to go into the underground, throwing Molotov cocktails against the walls of Carvalhan. I hope that would be the next part. That would be really, really cool, but I doubt that is what will happen. However, what we're going to look at is, the way this happens. So they go from village to village, and Matt is still blinded by the lightning strikes, and then Rand gets his magic headache. It's a magic hangover. It's pretty. I do like the idea of the magic hangover. That's pretty cool. I mean, I feel as someone who has had hangovers before, I feel for for Rand in that situation. But what I wanted to look at is once again pacing. So while we have 3 dark friends contacting our buddies Rand and Matt, they're very different. The first one is Goat, the merchant, the rich merchant, very effeminate, and so forth, and powerful. He has like coaches with men and everything with him, and they just lay all of that waste. The next guy is just like a village guy, dressed better than most, I guess, but just, an average village dude. And the third one is a very well-dressed woman. And now I see what Robert Jordan is trying to do, which is to show the dark friends come in all colors, which is female, effeminate, or at least inordinately proud of themselves and taking too much care of their looks. But maybe there's other qualities as well. But I do see that part. Now, the interesting thing is that he starts with a bang and then kind of mellows it out. I mean, yes, that last one tries to kill Matt with a magical dagger, but it feels a bit like the stakes are actually being lowered from like the first encounter with that guy and the lightning and everything to the last one, which is an interesting choice. I'm not saying it's a good choice, I'm saying it's interesting. It's not what you might expect, I guess. And then obviously they find the murderer that does not see them, and then they get the lift on the cart to Camelin. Basically Camelot is what I'm trying to say, because there is Queen Morghese, which sounds scarily Arthurian to me. And her sons Galahad and Gawain, or whatever they are. Yeah, kind of too. But we're not yet there. So they get to Camelin, they find the house of the Queen's Blessing, the inn that Tom told them. They get Tom's backstory, which is, he was probably lover of the Queen, but definitely Definitely her court bard, and then he got into a fight with Queen Morghese and had to flee and do the Gleeman thing. And now, obviously, his buddy, the innkeeper, is helping them because of because of how much he loved Tom. Realistic? Probably not, but this is fantasy, so who cares? And then they hang out, and during all of that time, our good buddy Matt is becoming more and more paranoid to extreme levels, which is, connected to that dagger. So it's a bit of a Gollum thing going on there. It's basically has moved from being Pippin to being Gollum, which poor bastard. But that's how these things go. And I don't want to, beat all like those beat the dead horse and point out every single Lord of the Rings connection. We obviously have a new one, which is the Ogier, because the Ogier is basically an Ent. Long live, they love trees, they love to sing to trees, and they're not very hasty. Yeah, heard that before. Also, he's a bit hasty, so he's basically a quick beam. Quick beam, but he likes to read books. And I do appreciate that. It's a bit of a twist. I've seen worse. And we get introduced to something that is interesting, and that is Taviran, or however you pronounce that. And I want to look at Taviran later. Right now, it feels a bit like a contrivance. It's like, yeah, sometimes the wheel of time weaves fortune around you, and sometimes you're basically bent to it, and so forth. So it feels like a plot device. Is it more? I don't know. Convergence in Malazan has similar functions, so at some point I want to compare those two, but I feel I need to read a bit more Wheel of Time before I am qualified to do that. If, however, the Critical Dragon wants to tackle that particular thing, then I'd be more than happy to leave it to, don't fuck around with dragons. They're dragons. That's what I'm trying to say. And if he's the Critical Dragon, I'm probably the hypercritical halfling maximum. So yeah, they have adventures in Camelin. There's a bit of a political thing. We need to analyze the politics of this world. I think this is the point where we need to do that, because they don't make any sense. I see what he's going for, but maybe it's because Robert Jordan knows shit about European politics in the Middle Ages, which why not? But apart from that, those politics make no sense whatsoever because we don't get any information. So yeah, this is the kingdom of Endor. Andor. I have no idea how it's spelled. Andor. I hope there's no Witch of Endor. On the other hand, I guess those are the Witch of Endor is probably the Aes Sedai advisor to Queen Morghese, whose name I have already forgotten. Elida. Elida is probably the Witch of Endor. Anyway, my point is, so we have that kingdom, but we also have the Children of the Light, which is basically the Inquisition of the church, but we don't have organized religion. There's no fucking priests or anything. So where do the Children of the Light get their authority from? Because, while in medieval Europe, say, which is obviously what inspired this part of the world at least, while there is a power balance between church and state all the time, because the church is its own thing, has its own power, has military power, and so forth, there is a structure behind that. But as it stands right now, the Children of the Light are just a bunch of bullies. Yes, they have military. They're like a bunch of mercenaries, holier than thou mercenaries, and so what's stopping Queen Morghese to just send her army to just kill each and every fucking child of the light for trespass or something else? What right do those fuckers have to wander around the land and just not get kicked out for being idiots? Yes, they claim to be, fighting for the light and fighting against the Dark One. But anyone can do that, and the way they're going about it with torturing people and whatnot makes them more than a little sus. So how can they get away with this is what I'm trying to ask here. And so while the idea of having the city kind of split between Queen Morghese and Elida on the one side and those favoring the Children of the Light, or at least wanting some sort of change or kick out the Aes Sedai, is a good idea, and it's, well, not good, not well done. It's, it's a bit of a novelty there, I guess. I can live with that, and that's kind of fine. But what I'm trying to say here is like how it just lacks it doesn't, I don't know, it just doesn't fully compute for me. It's like, why are they allowed to do whatever the fuck they are doing? I mean, yeah, maybe in Berlon, because there's like 200 like well-armed dudes out there, and Berlon is a bit of a shithole and has maybe 5 scruffy guards. Right, that's just rule of force and rule of arm. There's no justification, and I'm a bit pissed off that Robert Jordan has not provided any form of reason of why they could get away with this. And I'm fine with like not having a bit of an info dump, but I'm not fine with everyone just accepting it. Like those idiots from fucking Two Rivers should not know about this shit. They should ask, like, why the fuck are they allowed to do this? But they don't. Everyone is just like, oh, Children of the Light, they're well-armed thugs, we better be careful. No, what you do is you punch them and then down, and then you kick them some more, and then you kick them some more, and throw them out of your fucking kingdom for being assholes. That's what you do. But unless, obviously, there's a reason, and if you do that, then, I don't know, 5,000, 10,000 more Children of the Light show up and burn down your kingdom. But on the other hand, if they can do that, why the fuck haven't they done it already, is sort of my question there. Because they don't strike me as the kind of people that would completely accept anyone else's rule because they know that they're better. Alright, just a thing to ponder. Maybe this will all be explained in later books. If that is the case, then that's nice. But I'm still pissed off at Robert Jordan for not doing it the proper way, because that's how you do, like, it's fine to not spoon-feed your reader every single bit of information about the world. I'm a huge fan of that. I do love Malazan, and I do love stuff like the Book of the New Sun. But there's a way to do that. It still makes sure you see or have a bit of an idea of why people can do whatever they can do, why they have the efficacy that they have or have not. That's just lacking here. So I hope this will happen later on, but I'm still pissed off that it has not been explained yet. So there's that. Now let's look at the castle adventure. That's what I wanted to look at. So we have the whole Logain theme, and like how he's still like very powerful, magical, and whatnot. And yeah, we get the idea. There's false dragons. However, the interesting question is, what does make someone a dragon? If it's just like any dude that can use magic, then what distinguishes a false from the correct dragon? Also, is there such a thing as a correct dragon? As the right dragon, the rightful dragon? Is there? We don't know, because we have like literally no explanation whatsoever. Everyone is just like afraid of the fucking dragons. I mean, I get it. They're huge, scaly motherfuckers that blow fire. I get that. But this is just a dude who raised an army. He's just magic dude robber baron. Why is that a problem? And this is once again the idea that while Robert Jordan spends inordinate amounts of time to explain us every single bit of clothing, which, once again, if you want to do that, great. He just not explained a lot of these things, which is something we're going to come back to in a minute or two. But I wanted to talk about the castle thing, which I did kind of like. Yes, it was over the top. It's unrealistic as all hell, and it obviously serves certain plot reasons, like giving a prophecy to poor old Rand, who kind of was left a bit out so far, because we already know about like the Wolfie thing with Perrin and all the Matt stuff going on with Matt. But Rand was a bit like, yeah, he has a sword and he's apparently not his father's son, so what else? So we get some hints there. But the idea of like him just climbing up that wall and then falling backwards and meeting Elaine and I want to call him Gawain, but it's something similar to that, I guess. And I didn't like listen properly. Who knows? That dude, yeah. So he meets them. It's a bit lighthearted, a bit more lighthearted, and I appreciated that because I feel it's something that Robert Jordan is better at than he is at like actually making things seem convincingly dark or threatening. So far, at least for me. His threats just don't carry any weight. But this like sort of lighthearted, almost a bit like fairy tale-y kind of thing of him bumbling into the princess and all of that stuff is, yeah, well, it's not too bad. It's not too bad, really. I'm good with that. They're meeting Queen Morghese. Yes, it's a bit cliche that, like, of course the queen is magisterial and powerful and charismatic. It's like, not all kings and queens are good-looking, powerful, charismatic people. What they are is people that have the power for whatever reasons, and that's fine. Unless you're like, yeah, everyone can become king by just, knocking over whoever's in his way. So, Logain? Also, if there's low gain, where's high gain? Well, that's a different question. So we have all of that, and I'm fine with that. One thing, there's a little subtlety there that I wanted to look at. So we still know shit about the whole idea of the wheel weaving, whatever, because Robert Jordan does not explain this. Is this just a saying? Is there literally something like that? But in a lot of mythologies, we have the idea that, fates are sort of like fabric. They're woven or something else, spun. You have the fates in Greek mythology. You have the Norns in Norse mythology, the idea of like this connecting that like story, like lives are fates are like threads, and you build a larger image sort of kind of thing out of it as like history is something that we've seen in a lot of ways. Whether it's tapestries, showing history, like you have in the Memory, Sorrow, Thorn with the whatever the she, I guess they're called, those non-elves in Ted Williams books, that thing. Or it is like literally like in mythology that this is how the history is actually created, not just like how it's depicted. That connection has been there a lot, and I'm fine with that. I just wonder, like, how literal do I have to take this here? There's no real idea. We don't know, because we don't get any explanations. However, what we get is Elida, the Aes Sedai advisor to Queen Morghese, who, Queen Morghese, anyway, is sitting in the background while they have the audience, and Elida, who is able to discern the pattern and maybe do prophecies and shit, is sitting there and knitting. First of all, good on her for knitting, I like that. Plus, there's actually something almost, well, it's not subtle, but it's there. It's like the person who's, has powers to look at the future is also playing around with threads and stuff and creating some sort of fabric. So good on Robert Jordan for discovering this trick of literature. I'm happy with that. So there's that. I'm good with that. Also, a mysterious mystery beggar is still out there hunting them, and we totally don't know who it is. Of course not. Also, his huge beak of a nose hasn't been mentioned for a while. So, let's look at the other bits. Before we go to the reunion part and then end this for today. The other bits. Nynaeve, Moraine, and Lan go to rescue Perrin and Egwene. And that basically happens. They ride over there. Nynaeve does dumb heroism and steals horses because she discovers Bella, and obviously the horse will have to survive. There's no dog in this book, so I guess Bella has the dog role, so she has to come along for everything. And it's kind of a shame that she's named Bella, just like Bill is the pony in Lord of the Rings, but then again, it is what it is. She could have had like a great name, but it's Bella. Anyway, I still, imagine her as my mother's horse, because it literally is like how I imagine a draft horse becoming a riding horse. Anyway, I might get you a picture of that at some point. However, what I wanted to say is there's like one interesting thing. There's two interesting things there. One is we see some sort of tension slowly developing between Nynaeve and Lan, which kind of makes sure that Nynaeve is totally, and I'll leave that for, no, I'll not leave it out there. She's definitely Eowyn. Well, Nynaeve is Eowyn, basically, if you do the Lord of the Rings and parallels kind of thing. Lan's Aragorn, Nynaeve's Eowyn, and Moraine, maybe Arwen, who knows? She's a bit more active though, so that's fine. However, what we mostly see is the whole like Children of the Light kind of with child bias, who is totally not biased, and we see the attempt of, and this is once again what I said before, Robert Jordan as a writer here is extremely crude and on the nose. It's sledgehammer prose basically, and it's like we kind of get it. Bias is evil. He's evil because he doesn't even care. There's no hatred there. He's the Eichmann of he's the banal evil Eichmann of the Children of the Light. And I get what that he's trying to do that, but because he's uncertain if his readers will understand what he's trying to do, he has to point out his like unemotional way of dealing with things and so forth. He has to point out that thing every single fucking time the guy shows up. Ideally twice or thrice. And that's just a bit overdone. So once again, there's good ideas there. But it's overdone. It's like maybe over time Robert Jordan becomes a better writer, a more skilled, a more subtle writer. But here it's still very on the nose. So yeah, we have that. We learn backstory stuff that's like obviously everyone knows everyone. Again, what we learn this time is that obviously Elias was Lan's boss and master and taught Lan everything that Lan knows. And yeah, and there's that. But yeah. I'm not sure if I like that connection. It just seems a bit too neat. But then again, you can always pull that Taviran card on me, can't you? So there's that. Anyway, they leave. They flee to Caemlyn, where everyone gets reunited, and Moraine cures Gollum. Well, Moraine doesn't cure Gollum, but Moraine at least pours a concrete sarcophagus on the nuclear reactor of Matt's Chernobyl. Something like that. She pauses or resets the whole "this will make you evil" thing of the knife. And that's pretty cool. And then we have a long discussion where we do stuff where we come to a narrative device that I did not really like. So everyone talks to everyone tells everyone stories. The Ogier show is in the room and talks to everyone as well. It's all fun and games because now we come to the preparation for the big end fight. And yes, there has been one mention of it before. Maybe two? No, one mention. Two mentions. 1.5 mentions before of the Eye of the World. We don't know what the Eye of the World is. No one knows what the Eye of the World is. But now we have 3 warnings, because suddenly the Eye of the World shall not serve you has been upgraded to the Dark One wants to destroy, to a third one, the Dark One wants to attack the Eye of the World. I personally did not see that in there, but well, I'm not an Aes Sedai, so what do I know? Anyway, so what that means is that obviously our ragtag group of highly destined Taviran kids, plus the Ogier, have to run directly to wherever the Eye of the World is to save the world, instead of actually asking more competent people to do their job. Because that's how these stories work. Now, does this make sense? No. Is it fine because it's basically tropey fantasy? Yeah. Well, yeah, it's kind of fine. I can live with that. My issues are once again in the build-up and stuff. Because, see, not mentioning the Eye of the World except in that one dream is kind of fine, but it comes sort of out of nowhere. They're suddenly not going to the city, not going to Camelin, and I kind of see that he's sort of pulling a bit of a Minas Tirith. Mount Doom one here, but suddenly they have to go somewhere else, not to the Shining City because of whatever. I do see that, but once again, in a book that is this long and has this much fluff, like absolutely unnecessary fluff of like how houses are, how stuff is built up, how clothes look, there's all of that going on, and he does not find any way to give us a bit more information, or at least some sort of idea of why the Eye of the World matters. I mean, for all we know, at this point, the Eye of the World can be just some sort of like barbecue hut in the forest. We don't know. Maybe Baalzamon just wants to, I don't know, have a bit of a party there. We don't know. It's literally all up in the air because we don't get any form of premonitions there. We have these dreams that obviously something's wrong with, like some of those boys are chosen. Well, 3 of them are chosen. It's not just one chosen one. It's a chosen threesome or a chosen triumvirate. I prefer threesome in that case because it sounds a bit greasier than triumvirate and it's less masculine. However, my point is that the idea of having 3 and not just one chosen one is fun. It's interesting to play with. I guess it means that technically, because all of them are bound together, and Nynaeve and what's her name, Egwene is also in that gang. It's more like 5 people. I hope they are also sort of chosen ones. We'll see. But still, there's no reason to care for the fucking Eye of the World at this point. It just shows up and suddenly everyone is like, oh, the Eye of the World, we need to save it right now and do something dumb. Luckily, we found our teleport ent who can totally beam us over there immediately. But beware, because teleporting the ways is dangerous. Maybe there's muggers in the magical subway or whatever. We'll find out in the next chapters, which I'll read tonight, and then I'll be done with it. We'll talk about it tomorrow, and then next week we'll plunge into the Great Hunt. But yeah, that's sort of one thing that I found unconvincing, or like not handled very well, because he has enough room. He can build up all that stuff. He could have done it. There's a lot of that going on. We get the idea of, there's like old stuff in this world. There is a conflict with a Dark One who was apparently bound at some place, which I suspect is a volcano because it's always a fucking volcano. But look, I've said it before. I don't need a huge info dump at the beginning. I'm fine with having all these like bits and pieces and discovering the world one after another and over time and whatnot. I do, I kind of like Malazan is what I'm trying to say. But what Robert Jordan does in Eye of the World is he fails at doing that, because the bits and pieces he provides, while being tantalizing and interesting, are not the bits and pieces that actually lend any, weight to the stakes that he suddenly pulls out of his, well, literary arse, I guess. And that's the problem that I find with this. Is like, Tolkien goes and does the heavy one, right? He hits you over the head in Lord of the Rings. He goes like, Chapter 2, The Shadow of the Past, Gandalf shows up, tells Frodo the entire story. It's like, this is the one ring, you need to do this. So we know what the stakes are. That's one way to do it. Stephen Erickson goes different way. He does not tell us anything about the stakes, about the final stakes or whatever. But that doesn't matter because the drama is a different one. It's on a personal level and so forth, which is also fine. Robert Jordan basically wants people to understand that they're saving the world. They need to do this right now. But he tells us at about the 80% mark of the book. Now, until then, he doesn't really explain anything. And that makes just like, I don't know, I don't care about the fucking Eye of the World and the Green Man, whoever the Green Man is. We don't know. Probably one of those environmentalists, a Fridays for Future whatever guy at this like parking lot in the middle of nowhere. I mean, I don't need the full backstory, but some idea of like why the Eye of the World is important would have been interesting. Or like someone like once the Eye of the World got mentioned, literally mentioned at what is it? When Elias and Elijah and the others leave the Tinkers, and the Tinker tells them like, Rain tells Elias about the whole thing, the Eye of the World and whatnot, because obviously Elias, and this is mild cheating, though Elias was a ranger, not a ranger, a warder, and they run around in the Blight, and apparently the Eye of the World is somewhere in the Blight. So you'd think that someone, either Egwene or Perrin, would ask a dumb question like, so what's the fucking Eye of the fucking World, Elias? But they never do. Even now, when like everyone talks about the Eye of the World will not serve you. And the other story about the Ogier tells about the Eye of the World, and then they bring up the Eye of the World story from the Tinkers again, and no one ever asks what the Eye of the World is. And that's fine. Maybe everyone in this world knows. I doubt that, because I'm pretty sure that the guys from Two Rivers don't know shit about it. But they don't ask. They're like, yeah, well, then we'll better go and save the Eye of the World. Makes a lot of sense. Because if it's something that everyone in that world knows, and because we are not doing like a first-person narrative where a narrator doesn't feel they have to explain things that are obvious to them, as in, say, Book of the New Sun, or The Black Company. This is omniscient narrator. So if it's something that everyone in the world knows, if it's common knowledge, then at some point you need to provide that to the reader, and he doesn't do that. So, yeah. There's about 10 chapters left. They're going somewhere to the north, and they're going to save the Eye of the World. Whatever that is. And you'll hear all about it tomorrow when I wrap this thing up, and then, yeah, we'll see how things continue from there. Until then, have a great Thursday, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. Cheers.